Greeting voters of Newton County and Missouri. I'm going to call this video Sign of the Times in Newton County. And I'm telling about the, mainly Newton County Republican primary votes here. I have it divided into two groups of evildoers. The ones that I find the most objectionable are those who work as lawyers or judges or whatever in so-called family courts. And those family courts deliberately destroy white families and buy and sell white children. You see, government supposedly is set up for the good of the people. But the end result of these, quote, family courts is that they allow anyone, especially if it's against the white male. Today, you cannot have guaranteed that if you're a white man, that you will be able to raise your own children. Raise your children to from their birth all the way up to when they reach 18. Chances are, in many cases, you're not going to be allowed to do that. It's because of these family court members. Now, Greg Stremmel and Kevin Lee Selby, and Kevin Lee Selby is a total monster, but Greg Stremmel, he's an evil, weak monster as well. Essentially, they're running unopposed. I think somebody, finally, you have a lawyer who is running as an independent against that monster, is what I heard last night at the Newton County Republican watermelon feed. And I was there, and I took the videos. But you also had Christine Rhodes. And Christine Rhodes was yapping about how she was a guardian ad litem and still is, and how she's working for families. No, she destroys families. That bitch was my stepdaughter Emily's guardian ad litem, and she essentially forced my stepdaughter to give up her 4 grandkids. Now, my stepdaughter really hasn't done much of anything for her life. About the only thing I've thought that she's ever done anything that was worthwhile is to squeeze out 4 healthy white children. And pretty well, when you go ahead and you take the children, especially of poor whites, but also of political enemies, because those 4 white children were my grandchildren. And later on, Greg Stremmel and Kevin Lee Selby did their best to railroad me, have me murdered, and then sent to a nut house because I wouldn't accept a public pretender for 3.5 years. I lived in hell, but Christina Rhodes, she's evil. By the way, I heard last night that there's this guy named Bill White, not the movement leader here, but let me see. Yep, Bill White. He's running for state senator against Rob O'Brien. Now, Rob O'Brien was a crook. He really screwed the people of Granby. But Bill White, he's someone who screwed white people because he was working to send kids to foster care. And that's the problem of it is. They take the babies, they take the best ones of these poor white children, and they give it to rich folks or connected folks to, quote, adopt. And then the ones which don't make it are tossed onto foster care, and pretty well used up or ruined. Just like my slightly retarded grandson. I hear he's a rage monster, and I hear he's in a nut house somewhere in Missouri. They turned, essentially a sweet-tempered young boy, turned him into a rage monster who essentially can't make it out on his own here. They destroyed, and they don't care. They don't care. These people who destroy a white family, the only thing you can do with them is that's so evil. That is so evil, and is so destructive of our white population that anyone who destroys a white family, their own children, their own family, their own bloodline should be cut off. I'm glad that Greg Stremmel has 2 white children who I really think should be tortured, gelded, and enslaved. Should be destroyed, just like he destroyed so many white families, the same way with Christine Rhodes. Her family, her bloodline should be cut off altogether. And what Bill White did, if he did too here, that means him too. So, folks, I despise Rob O'Brien. It's like I despise Claire McCaskill. But, folks, one just simply stole your money. The other one stole your future and stole your life and stole our people's lives here. And this creature should never, ever go any further in Missouri state politics. The second ones are the ones who go ahead and destroy liberty, destroy the First Amendment. And I include Josh Hawley in that. You see, Josh Hawley believes the crooked judges are above the law. That's why he sent a letter to me. And last Wednesday, the crooked judge named Curlis went ahead and said that my lawsuit was frivolous and said that I have to pay $4,000 to this Jew lawyer named Brian Todd Goldstein. Why did Brian Todd Goldstein say that? Well, he said that Anderson versus the city of Jacksonville, Missouri, it overturned what the plain letter language of the law said, which that these public notices are supposed to give as soon as possible. If they're not given, they're supposed to have a written notice as to why not legally, other than I don't like you. And with that written notice here, it's supposed to be done within 72 hours. It doesn't say that it's fatal if it's, it takes over 72 hours. Those papers are to be given immediately. And I filed it in defensive reaction against Kevin Lee Selby and Judge Gregory Stremel. The reason for it is that these two crooked women working for the city of Granby, Kara Jo Copper and Lana Price, who is evil, runs the feed store. I end up calling them two fat hogs about 2 or 3 times, and so they go and they get a bogus domestic assault and sexual harassment or sexual assault charge claiming I'm stalking. And Greg Stremel had a 58-minute farce of a trial where he went ahead and ruled that a sheet of paper and the lie that Lana Price made that I had gotten within 8 feet of her while trying to get to my car, that was 2 incidents of stalking. And he went ahead and lied, say we were acquaintances. No, I was an aggrieved citizen. Now, folks, those domestic abuse orders, Chapter 455, are supposed to be used for battered women. I think they ought to be done away with. I think that anybody who perjures themselves should go to prison. That would go ahead and cut down on the divorce rate, or it'd go ahead and enable a white man to at least keep more of his funds here and just simply pay for the children. But no, it's used to destroy white families. But it's also used by Greg Stremel and Kevin Lee Selby to destroy the First Amendment. Because allowing government workers to claim, I'm so scared, I'm so harassed. Get a domestic protection order. It's just a matter of time before a crooked cop like Jacob Kelly and Montana Haddock will use that. Say you're within 500 yards of the city hall in Granby, which really doesn't have any businesses, but it's all on the north side, and arrest you when you're conducting your private business, even during the time allowed. That is the corrupt things which is going on. I was arrested Monday. I went ahead and told these people. Went ahead and told Josh Hawley's little assistants. I told Austin Peterson, who's also running for United States Senate. Folks, that's what you have here. You have these people who do away with the First Amendment by saying that government workers are above the law. The judges who go ahead and write that. I said I wouldn't talk to judges, but I said I was in jail yesterday. Kevin Lee Selby says, well, I didn't, it wasn't my doing. I said, not for lack of trying. What I should have said is, yes, it was your doing, because you wrote up that bogus temporary restraining order without jurisdiction. to have this crooked cop arrest me yesterday for violating the protection order. I went ahead and got the police copy from Jacob Scobie. Essentially, I don't think he's going to prosecute that nonsense. But if he does, he does. Essentially, what you're doing is go away, First Amendment, because it can be overturned simply by crookedness, like what this is going on. And the very worst, I found out, Bill Ribble, he's running unopposed. He's running unopposed for county commissioner. He looked sick. He looked old. I told him how wicked his son-in-law, Jared Thomas, is. Jared Thomas went and colluded to allow Joyce Mann to put in her used double wide, essentially pass laws that poor people cannot put in a single wide or a double wide. They can't do that. Essentially, their little friends get to do that. And I got arrested on the 20th of June, 2017 for protesting. How dare you set up new laws about small houses when you yourself don't obey the laws you have. You go ahead and conspire. Second of all, I was arrested on the 23rd of January of this year for violation of 815 as well, for making fun of the crooked mayor because they thought I'd be up in Lake County, Ohio that night, and so they tried to sneak in, paying the Styrens $300,000 for their big building, when they could have bought a building right next door to City Hall for $21,000. So they've been stealing from the city of Granby, and guess what? None of these people want to do a damn thing about it. None of them want to go ahead and do anything other than look away. So look away or hide it or go after me. For essentially daring to say, no, you don't do this. I mean, hell, Lana Price and Kara Copper probably weigh more than I do, but not by much. And they certainly can run a lot faster than I can, the gout or anything like that here. But these evil people, that's what you have. You have evil judges, evil lawyers. They're destroying our people under color of law. And folks, let me just point out here what I stand for. I stand for the belief that what is going to save our life is a great tribulation, a great collapse, which will have no more than 20% of the white population left. And it will be ruled by warlords, much the way like it was after the fall of the old kingdom, and the salvation, which became the middle kingdom, was when the warlords went and reconquered, reunited Upper and Lower Egypt. So, folks, we'll have ecological disaster, we'll have financial disaster. There'll be far fewer people living, and they won't pretend that they have a constitution and bill of goods. They'll understand that the true form of government that we should have, essentially, is military dictatorship by those whose first loyalty is not to a scrap of toilet paper, which is abused, but rather to a people. So that is what I promote here. That is what I advocate. Because what happens is this is not sustainable. And folks, there has to be something better than this. And it will come about not because you want it or vote for it. It will come about because there will be no other choice. I went ahead and, as far as the rest of them here, I'm going to take a little break. Okay, Newton County watermelon feed. There was, Josh Hawley showed up because, just like that imbecile Nick Meyer says, Newton County is the most Republican part of the most Republican state senatorial district. And if a Republican does not get over 70% in Newton County, he's going to lose. Now, like I pointed out, you have evil Republicans. That, as far as what the judge is, I sort of hate to admit. Now, he was sort of he was quite specific. He was denouncing racism because he's a Mexican or something like that, Brian Stevenson. And let me tell you about him. I've had my dealings with him. About 15 years ago, over here, an old white guy went ahead and bought a tax property, and he paid Brian Stevenson $600 to get it fixed up, to get the tax issue settled, so we can go ahead and get it. And then Brian Stevenson sent a letter wanting their $60 plus postage. I went ahead and wrote a letter to Brian Stevenson telling him about, guess what? You offered, the deal was $600. It's not going to be $660. It's not going to be another $60 for postage. You better go ahead and do what you said you would do with no more nonsense and no more delay. Went ahead and sent him one of my Pastor Martin Lindstedt letters. Wasn't a very nice letter. It's talking about how I would humiliate him in my webpage at the very least. But Brian Stevenson did, he didn't acknowledge my letter, but he did tell Frank that, okay, he would get that thing settled for the contracted price of $600. So Brian Stevenson is just nothing more than a thief. Christine Rhodes will buy and sell your children. She'll go ahead and destroy your family. And Jared Thomas will go ahead and destroy your liberty, and he'll go ahead and steal your property, and he will talk about how he supports law enforcement because, hey, he's just nothing more than a criminal. I'm not going to advocate anybody votes for a non-white, judge. But Brian Stevenson, at least he's just a thief, or a wannabe thief. Anyway, we had Josh Hawley there. And he was talking about how he was big buddies with Trump and how he would beat Claire McCaskill. Well, folks, what I want everyone to know is that this is just nothing more than a big, plutocrat. He's just nothing more than a little corporate lawyer shill. Because that's who wants to go ahead and run, just like the Newton County Republicans here. They're little corporate shills. And so they go ahead and they buy a whole bunch of little politicians here. And I'll go down the list here. Now, I was a little bit impressed by Mr. Austin Peterson. But I'm certainly not going to endorse him because that endorsement would be the kiss of death here. I was somewhat impressed by him. I was a little bit impressed by this guy named Cortland Sykes here. He was talking about the deep state here. I agree with that. So you had a conspiracy theorist and you had a pseudo-libertarian who would be far better than Josh Hawley. But I still hope that Josh Hawley goes ahead and wins, because I think he will lose to Claire McCaskill, because Claire McCaskill is a Hillary light bitch. But she doesn't go to the local courts and buy and sell white children. She doesn't much care for us white men. But she doesn't bother us directly. Keep that heifer in Washington to go against the corporate butt licker, Roy Blunt, because that's all he cares about is money. There needs to be a balancing act. And so I despise Claire McCaskill. But the one who could go ahead and win, because folks, when it comes down to it here, us poor whites need to stick together. Us essentially remaining middle-class whites need to stick together. And voting for a corporate lawyer, running around talking about how we have a great constitution, while at the same time writing letters about how judges are above the law and how it is improper for me to file a Sunshine Act collateral attack against Greg Strammel's usurping jurisdiction, against that monster Kevin Lee Selby usurping jurisdiction. so that corrupt policemen can go ahead and arrest you for violating a, quote, bogus domestic assault on an empty building, because Lana Price had run out the back. She wasn't in the building. I don't know where she was. And I certainly don't want to chase after that fat hog. Essentially, I just want to go ahead and do my business. I went ahead and called up, and Jacob Kelly was there, and I said, shoot, I can't, I said, I may have to be up in Lake County. I cannot afford to be in jail, certainly not now that my son-in-law isn't here to deliver my bail. I can't afford to go ahead and be spending the next couple days in jail because of you criminals doing whatever they want. So anyway, that's what Josh Hawley stands for. He stands for false arrest. He stands for the police doing whatever they want. He stands against the First Amendment. He's just nothing more than a corporate shill. That's all he is. And folks, better an open enemy like Claire McCaskill than a corporate false friend and shill and degenerate liar like Josh Hawley. I went ahead and handed him a paper where I was complaining, Aryan Nations versus Newton County. I was complaining that Corporal Warren Barnes told my brother that he could go, that my brother could go ahead and kill my mother and embezzle $250,000 from her estate, which he did. My mother's death warrant was written at 4:36 p.m. February 18, 2013. Thank you, Josh Hawley. You've not only gone ahead and stolen my future, but you went ahead and destroyed my past as well. It's not enough for you to go ahead and buy and sell and steal white children and go ahead and let these crooked judges, some of them white, some like Grinder Grady, and some of them not white, like Kevin Lee Selby. It's all right for you to go ahead and steal, now go ahead and destroy our people by stealing our children, but it's also right to go ahead and encourage people to go ahead and steal, go ahead and murder parents here, grandparents, so that corrupt family members can go ahead and essentially enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. Folks, this Republican Party, I went ahead and looked at what they did. It was just simply nothing but politicians, a few hangers-on, and a few people who just wanted to see the circus. And that's all it was. A bunch, folks, just like I said here, the rest of them are just mainly just lying retards who just want a government check. That's all they are. Thanks to term limits here, you have a bunch of them. State auditor, you had a couple people, and they were talking about how they would do things so much greater, so much different. I said, well, when are you going to go ahead and audit Granby? This place is just nothing but thievery, nothing but corruption, nothing but grabbing, going ahead, use your power. $21,000 for a police station from an old building here won't grant very much kickbacks because $21,000 was all that building was worth. And Jamie Arnell went ahead and left it open for 7 months while they were telling, oh, we'll get a new police station. They had no intention all along. It was to give the Styrens and their $300,000 of Granby money and then counting. All it was just simply by this corrupt city council and this evil, corrupt mayor, T. Rampage Gamble, to go ahead and steal from the people of Granby. That's all it was. Jim Jackson says, why are they going to such lengths to keep you from dissent? And the answer is that I'm the only one who will dissent. Most of you are just sheep. None of these auditors can go ahead and say, is it shoot? As part of my campaign pledge, I'll go ahead and audit a crooked crap hole like Granby. Find out where most of that $300,000 is going. Congress, well, they found some way to simply advance Billy Law, fat idiot, fat buffoon, who hasn't done a single town meeting since he got elected in 2010. Spends most of his time, in lost wages. Go ahead and eating out with the lobbyists here. So you have a number of people. They try to run what they think is against the buffoon. The folks in the 7th District likes buffoons. They liked Roy Blunt, didn't they? State Senator, 32nd District. It's a choice between Bill White or Rob O'Brien. And folks, most of the money, most of the corporate establishment favors Rob White. He was head of economic development. Was paid a six-figure salary. Went ahead and wasted at least $4 million or more of mainly Joplin tornado funds from the 2011 tornado. Went ahead and brought in them corrupt buffoons, Wallace Bajali, who went ahead and ripped off Joplin. But what I found out about Bill White is he went and became a juvenile officer, which means he's a baby stealer. He's a baby stealer. Now both of them here, they've got the pick of the white children here, because that's the way it is here. The poor are not allowed to have, the only thing that they have plenty of, white children here. The very best white children are essentially bought and sold like cattle here. Let's just understand, this is slavery. Nothing other than slavery. It's slavery to where they take the very best and give the corrupt values to these politicians and these rich people and these perverts and the rest here, and then they just abandon them to foster care. I went ahead and met the woman. She had one of her kids taking foster care, and I went ahead and explained that's pretty grim. When I was in jail on the 30th of July. State Representative Lane Roberts, running unopposed. He's just a crooked cop. Who went ahead and overlooked all the crooked crap going on in Joplin. Then resigned here and was appointed, Director of the Highway Patrol or something like that? For circuit judge, you have Grinder Greggy Stremmel running unopposed. Used to be a public defender, then became a crooked judge. I've seen him doing crooked stuff, just not for me, but hey. When I went ahead and fought that domestic order, told me he didn't have jurisdiction. Well, it doesn't matter what the law says here. You can go ahead and take it up at the 8th Circuit. We had 58 minutes. On April 9th. And then on April 13th for Carrot Joe Coffer, I asked for a jury trial, and he said, okay, we'll talk about it. And then I filed a motion for judgment of acquittal and motion for new trial, saying, hey, look, didn't have jurisdiction. And I pointed out 40 reversible errors. But the main one is that he would not let me play the audio recording of what actually happened on February 26th, where Lana Price claimed she was so terrorized. And he would not let me play, other than the part where I called him Fat Hog 3 times, because Lana Price says, Martin, you have to leave. And I said, look, Lana, this is not the feed store, which is right next door and enjoys my property line, where they dump their garbage at the very top of their feed store down to the gully. It comes onto my property, but never mind that. This is not the feed store. If I want to go to the feed store, I can see 2 fat hogs there. Shouldn't have to put up with it at City Hall. And that is for daring to call these fat hogs. That's what got me a domestic restraining order, a sexual assault and stalking restraining order. Folks, when you have policemen here who don't give a crap here, and I told Jacob Kelly several times he's crossed the line. Because if you have nothing but a bunch of thugs who are nothing more than muscle, for whatever crooked judge or crooked politician at the very top here, buying and selling children, stealing property, having corrupt deals. Essentially, you already have warlordism. It's just that you have warlordism under color of law.